Welcome to Adding Fuel to the Hire, a podcast for hiring managers and job seekers across all types of dealerships. With over 20 years collective recruitment experience, Rowan, Tony and Phil draw upon their knowledge to help you navigate through the recruitment and job hunt process. For more information, head to our website, addingfueltothehire.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Adding Fuel to the Hire. I'm your host today, Rowan Co, and with me I have Phil Lysader. How's it going, Phil?
Good. How are you, Rowan?
Pretty good. Today we're here to bust some recruitment myths. Funny name, but there's quite a few things out there from employers and candidates where they're concerned or have concerns, or there's myths out there about recruiters. So being recruiters and myself being in it for 11 years or more now, I think there's a few there that we can squash and maybe confirm or discuss. But why don't we get straight into it?
Yeah. There's a few of these, and I think I might just kick it off with our first one here. One of those classic recruitment myths these days in particular is it's all done by computers.
Yeah. Well, it is. There is a lot done by computers. Yes. You'd be silly not to utilize technology to your advantage and make your job easier. But in all of those advances in technology and bringing computers in to assist in recruitment, it frees up recruiters to be able to engage more with people, get them on the phone. So while there is technology to assist in posting job ads to multiple websites, keeping track of applications, and sending bulk communications to candidates, all those things would have taken time from a recruiter previously, where they weren't able to actually just get on the phone, call a candidate or a client and give them an update and talk to them about opportunities.
Yeah, that's right. So the days of, I think it's just, you sitting at a desk with a landline phone, punching in numbers, probably well and truly gone. Look, all these advances in technologies, they don't necessarily make the recruiter redundant, but they make they enable a recruiter to spend more time recruiting. So as you said, job posting is super fast now. It only takes us a couple of minutes, if that, to post jobs. Applicant tracking, we can stay on top of so many more applicants now than we would ever have been able to without technology systems. Bulk candidate communication, we can keep in touch with over 5,000 people, every single week. So these advances, they haven't made the human element redundant, but rather I think they've really allowed us to be more human and to be more contactable, more approachable as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot that a computer can't do. So yes, a computer can read resumes and count the number of times a keyword that you define comes up and gives the candidate a score based on that. We don't use any of that in our work, except if we're looking for a specific brand, we might do a resume keyword search, but we don't use that scoring system. And I do understand that, large organisations that get thousands and thousands of applications for one job, they may use something like that and it might be helpful for them. It's unfortunate that a lot of people might slip through the cracks, but a computer can't assess those intangible qualities that you and I could do on a telephone chat or a video chat, or meeting somebody face to face when that allows. They just can't tease out information that a candidate may not have actually put on their resume. So that's a real key personal trait that a recruiter can add rather than just handing it over to a computer.
Yeah, that's right. And there's just this big element of just personal fit or personality fit, whatever you want to call it, for a lot of employers. There's the experience, which maybe you can find out through a computer system, but actually having that feeling as a recruiter of, yes, this person would fit perfectly into this role. I can tell with the way I've interacted with them and the way I've interacted with the employer. I think it could be a great match. So there's a big element of personality in there that's still really important.
Yeah, well, I've lost count of the number of times that I've told a client, look, this candidate may not look ideal on paper or on their resume, but, you should definitely talk to them because there's just something there that, I think you would really latch onto. So, there's definitely that human element there. what you said about being able to identify their suitability for the position, it's also about identifying their suitability for other positions, especially if you're a recruiter and you've got multiple positions available at other clients. If you're talking to them about one role, but maybe they're not quite suitable for that one, but you can sense that, actually this person would be an excellent fit for, company B because they've got this experience. So, that is something else that a computer can't do. So, it's there is a lot there that computers do take off the hands of recruiters, but it is mostly that administrative and repetitive, monotonous tasks that none of us ever liked to do before. So we've got more time now to speak with candidates and spend time with them.
Yeah, that's right. And what you just said actually leads us perfectly into our next recruitment myth, which is I must not mention other applications at interviews.
Yeah, so as a candidate, you're going into I think this is on both sides. So, you've got a candidate side where, you go into an interview and you shouldn't talk about other applications that you've got in the pipeline with other companies, but also from the employer side, not mentioning the other applications that you've had from other candidates. On that second one, with the employers, I think, there can be some advantages to talking a little bit about that. Obviously, objectively and generally, you obviously can't identify people, but talking about some of the potential strengths of other applications may tease out some more information from the person that you're interviewing that they may not have communicated or potentially may not have even realised was a strength. The interviewer might say, we've interviewed this other person, they've got, Adobe Photoshop experience, which, is not something we asked for, but, the fact that they've got that means that we don't need to outsource this particular job. So, that's an added bonus. And then that person could actually say, well, actually, in my previous role, I was solely responsible for photoshopping things. So, I've got that experience. So it can be a good way of bringing out more information for a candidate and just elevate them and get them back in the running. Because if you're focused on some of those other things that maybe weren't talked about in job ads or job description, you may lose sight of what you're actually looking for there.
Yeah, that's right. And I've had candidates ask me this before, how do I stack up against, the other people that have come through? And you have to be prepared for that question as an employer. And it is actually a really good question to ask, I think, because it can manage expectations.
Yeah.
So it makes the recruitment process much more transparent. And you can sort of explain to them, look, we think your application is really good. You've got some really strong points here and here. We have had some other applicants who've had experience in these and these sort of areas. So it helps them to sort of understand, okay, this is how I stack up. This is probably the amount of time or the amount of thinking I should invest into this role. And it just makes it much more transparent for the candidate and for the employer as well.
Yeah, definitely. This one comes up a little bit. We see it quite frequently. Hiring multiple recruitment agencies will basically get you a better result. That's the myth. Unfortunately, we don't believe that to be true for a number of reasons. Why don't you talk us through your thoughts on that, Phil?
Yeah, so the second you engage multiple agencies, you are essentially starting a race. So Everyone is now racing to find the best possible people for this role as quickly as possible. And when you race, you tend to cut corners. So unfortunately, it ends up in an incomplete search of the market. We've all run campaigns where the perfect person came through on day 28. It wasn't on day 1 or 2. The other thing you have to think about is how well did they really analyze applications and how much time did they really spend with the applicants themselves. So you've got to remember, having multiple people work on it is not necessarily the best idea, simply just because you are still competing for the exact same amount of talent, right? The talent pool doesn't actually increase by using more recruiters. You're just putting more pressure on each recruiter individually to get as big of a portion of that talent pool as possible.
Exactly. And, the cutting corners and rushing really does affect the quality of service. I mean, candidates aren't appraised properly for the role. So, they might just give them a quick 2-second call on the phone. Oh, yeah, I've got to get you in there real quick because, they're looking at applications from other agencies as well. So I need to send you off today. They might pressure them, and then that candidate may not be interested long term because they weren't really 100% sure on the role anyway at the start. So I think it is important to, whilst, we understand that people want to get a result and they think that increasing that competition will get them that result, and it might, but at the same time there's just going to be a lot of corner cutting rather, and just trying to get to that candidate that's the same candidates. They're all there for the first agency that you engage, but they're all trying to find that one person, and it can be ruthless and really get you a negative result.
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing I think it can do as well is that, not all agencies love working on roles that other agencies are working on. And if you happen to get a few agencies that all realize, I'm competing with all these other companies, you might actually shoot yourself in the foot by doing that simply because the agencies will go, well, clearly this isn't a real relationship here. They're clearly not, respecting us enough to give us the role and to really, let us work it. We're not really that motivated to work on it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And you may end up with no candidates as a result.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important to have those people motivated, and I think positive motivation is a much more effective tool for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Another one that comes up is, if you're an employer and you're recruiting, and a candidate doesn't work out, or they don't, they pull out of the process or whatever, they might say that there's plenty more fish in the sea, which I think is a little bit short-sighted. Even though in COVID times that there is an increase of candidates available, they're not all the suitable candidate, and especially in a specialised industry like ours, having somebody with particular brand experience or experience in a particular field that you're looking for, it can still be quite rare and hard to find. And then even having a good one of those might even be rarer. So what are your thoughts on that? Yeah,
so look, we'll just gently ignore the COVID economic impacts for just a second. Over the last 30 years, unemployment has declined from 10% to 5%. There are far more jobs in the market than there are people. I know that obviously the COVID pandemic has really freed up some talent. There's a lot of people that have been made redundant, although I don't think that will last forever. I think this is probably only a temporary increase in the talent that's available. And realistically, long term, I think we'll be looking at what we've been looking at so far, which is there's just too many jobs and there's not enough people to do them. For the mechanic side, in particular, I think the latest estimations were something like 20,000 people short of what the industry actually needs. So, yes, there are candidates out there, but the attitude of, there's plenty of fish in the sea, will drag your recruitment process out. It'll damage your brand, it'll damage you, and you'll really slow down your business.
That's right. You've got to really treat every application as if they're the one that's going to be working with you. You want to give them a good experience through their application process, and make sure that you keep them informed and updated about the process so that you don't lose them, because there just aren't plenty more fish in the sea, especially if you're looking for a specific type. So
that's right. Yeah, it's really important to keep them engaged, particularly when we talk about the plenty of fish in the sea example. And the other thing that's really important as well is just to remember, you have to be a little bit flexible. Don't let your hire walk away over something as arbitrary as 50 cents an hour. Okay. Yeah. It's not worth it, and you're the one who's missing out at the end of the day with the market situation. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I guess related to that myth is the myth that the perfect employee is out there, which in most cases they're not, or at least not at the right time. So
correct. Yeah. So this unfortunately doesn't really exist. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. I haven't seen it yet. but sometimes it does. So sometimes you get super duper lucky and you have someone who comes through and they've got your brand experience, they've done this exact job at a competitor for the last few years, and they're just looking for a change of scenery, and you manage to snag them at the right price, and everything works out really well. And that is great if that happens, but often that doesn't go down like that. So, as much as we don't want to say, just take whoever, because you shouldn't just take whoever, you should take someone who's qualified for the role. Sometimes you need to maybe lower your expectations a little bit in terms of previous experience and think about how much is previous experience actually needed. How much do we actually need someone who's got brand specific experience versus someone who's willing and motivated and who's had exposure to the industry, who's done this role in a similar way at a different dealership, maybe with different brands. Maybe we should look at someone like that.
Yeah, definitely. And waiting for that perfect employee can really drag out the process. Time that could be spent training somebody who has 90% of the skills or requirements for what you're looking for. So, and they may have other benefits that you haven't seen yet. They may be a great employee that doesn't have your brand experience, but that's easily trained. So just keep that in mind as well. You might wait 6 months to try and find somebody with your brand experience or a specific experience that you really want for that perfect employee. But in the meantime, 4 months ago, you could have taken this candidate who by now would have been better than the perfect candidate. So that's worth considering as well, and really identifying, that candidate. What is it there that's maybe not, what makes up the difference of not being perfect, and is that something that you can actually mould and train?
Yeah, that's right. And this is, particularly this point, is something to keep in mind more and more as you go into more regional areas. So the more regional you get, generally the tougher it is to find people. So, the further out west, say in Queensland you get, the tougher it is to attract people to get out there. So you really have to think about, okay, this is what we really need. What are we willing to compromise on, and what can we actually teach the person? As long as they've got these and these attributes, what can we really run with, and go from there.
And another one that I've seen a few people say is, all you need is a job advertisement or a job ad, and the applications will come in. I think these days it's a lot more complex than that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So, look, only a small portion of the market is actually looking for a job actively. You might grab someone off a good job ad. Definitely, that's happened before. It happens all the time. But a large portion of the job market is actually passively looking. So they're not going onto job boards and hitting refresh every half an hour. If something interesting is presented to them and something challenging that spikes their interest, they would consider applying. But on a day-to-day basis, they're happy with their role, they're happy with what they're doing. So a job ad is only a small portion of the process, really.
Exactly. And LinkedIn research that I read said that only 15% of fully employed individuals are completely satisfied in their role, in that they don't want to change. However, only 25% are actively looking for a new job. So that means that according to LinkedIn, 60% of working people would be willing to consider changing a job, but they just haven't bothered looking.
That's right, yeah. And I can't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but I remember, I think it was LinkedIn as well. They were talking about being approached about a genuine opportunity, and they said it was a very high percentage. I think it was about 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 people were always happy to be approached about a new opportunity on LinkedIn, particularly when you're the employer approaching them. Particularly when you're saying, hey, I just saw your profile on LinkedIn. You look like you've got some great experience. We're actually recruiting for someone for this and this position. I thought I'd get in touch, see if you'd be open to looking at a new opportunity, if we could entice you to have a chat with us.
Yeah, and the job ad is just the first step. So, you need to tap your own network, try and extend your network and try and find other people, like through LinkedIn and maybe other networking events or your competitors, trying to find those other people. You need to be proactive in looking in other places as well. And other social media like, Facebook and Instagram might be suitable if you probably more customer focused. So if you want to convert one of your customers to an employee, that might be a good option as well. But yeah, the job ad is just the beginning. And yet you've got to be out there, you've got to be in the market. But there's many other avenues that you've got to look at as well.
Yeah, and I think another one of those myths is that recruiters are lazy. They'll just read CVs and then they send them off to employers.
That's right. And look...
is it?
Well, no, I mean, it's right that people say that. I mean, yeah, sure, there are certainly recruiters, and I've come up against them that just do that. They don't even call a candidate and they send their resume on. So, yes, it does happen, but you want to align yourself with a recruiter that, does value your privacy and does value your application, somebody who's going to spend the time with you to get to know you and understand and be upfront with you about whether this opportunity is the right job for them. I'm quite happy in an interview with a candidate, after I've spoken to them for 15, 20 minutes and just say, look, I think you've got some great experience, but I just don't think it's going to be quite what they're looking for, and we don't want to sort of waste your time with it. So, being upfront with them and I've never had anybody say, oh, that's ridiculous, or get angry. It's having that open communication, just being honest is welcomed by candidates. So I think align yourself with a recruiter who is genuine and wants to actually help you is probably the best way to avoid that.
Yeah, that's right. And I think a good way to do that is to try and go for someone who's focusing on your specific industry. Reason for that is they'll be a specialist. They'll actually know your industry. They'll know what you need. And they'll need to know what you're looking for. And the other thing is they've got a reputation that's on the line. So if you just focus on one single industry, you want people to know you and you want people to think well of you. And if you don't do a good job, it tends to spread. Word tends to spread fairly quickly. So aligning yourself with someone who focuses on your specific industries can be a huge plus for you in terms of market reach, the amount of candidates you might know that are all specific to your industry, and also in terms of their honesty and their transparency.
Yeah, and from an employer's side of it as well, they might be the ones thinking that recruiters just flick resumes over that, get applied on a job board. But again, it's, those aren't real recruiters, and that's not recruitment. That's resume screening, which is not, it has its place, but that's not necessarily what you want. And I think, as you said, if you go with a specialist recruiter whose reputation is on the line, they're more likely to find that person who's the best fit because they'll spend the time with those people and send them over. And quite often those specialist recruiters like us have a relationship with candidates that can be 5-10 years old. So, they know that person. They can put you in touch with people that they've known for many years who they know, they pick up the job and like, I know John Smith, who I spoke to 5 years ago about this role or this other role, he'd be actually perfect for this job because you know him. So that's where a recruiter can really, add some value.
Yeah. So I think bottom line, a good recruiter is meant to save you time and it's meant to save you money.
Yeah, exactly.
And add value to your business.
Exactly. And I think that's a pretty good spot to end it today. So thank you for your time today, Phil, and thank you for listening. We'll be back again next week, and we hope to see you then.
See you then.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Adding Fuel to the Hire. If you have any questions or you'd like to hear us talk about a particular topic, why not send us an email at podcast@addingfueltothehire.com. If you like what we do and would like to support our podcast, please leave a review on your podcasting app of choice. For further information, please visit our website, addingfueltothehire.com.